Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Chrissy Jameson. I'm an associate faculty member here at UAGC. I'll be the host of this session. By joining us today, you acknowledge that the session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled the live transcriptions. If you'd like to use that, just click on the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. I'm pleased to introduce you to our presenter today for this session called Anchoring Tools for Creating Volunteer Satisfaction. Our presenter is Suzan Burgett, and she is a doctoral student in the PsyD Psychology program here at UAGC. I'm going to turn it over to you, Suzan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. I'd like to welcome everybody for coming today, and thank you for being here. And volunteering is really what I believe that communities thrive on. So many things happen because of volunteers, services that are offered that cannot be when there's not enough volunteers. So that's why we're going to look at the importance of how to create volunteer satisfaction. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and Chrissy told you I'm a doctoral student at UAGC in the PsyD program. Just a little bit about my background quickly is the professional development consultant, leadership development and mentor, as well as process improvement consultant. So why does this topic matter? Why does volunteer satisfaction matter? Because volunteer satisfaction is directly related to volunteer retention. And volunteering in the United States is declining. We do know, as we said, that without volunteers, that nonprofits would have to reduce their services or potentially close. And we did see that during the pandemic, that because many of the volunteers were not able, because of health reasons or health risk, they were not able to serve their organizations. So that demonstrated quite well the need for volunteers. So let me ask you a question. How many of y'all are volunteers or have been, a volunteer? And you can just put that in the chat, because I know I can't see everybody's hands, but if you want to put that in the chat, and then Chrissy can let me know. I like that. Someone says,
I got it.
Go ahead, Chrissy.
Just as have been in multiple roles, but not currently. So perhaps in the past, volunteering.
Well, thank you for serving as a volunteer. So next slide, please. Today's outline is we're going to discuss two main things: 3 critical elements of success, and also the PIER model. And we're going to talk about the PIER model and why that is important. Okay. Next slide. The learning outcomes for this presentation is that at the end of this, you'll be able to list the 4 components of the PIER method. You'll also be able to recite the 3 elements of success for volunteer satisfaction. Next slide, please. The PIER model is something that I developed as a direct result of my doctoral research study. And I chose the word peer for a reason, because if you think about a peer that you've seen or you've been on, like at a lake or potentially even at a beach, that they're strong, they're supportive, they serve a purpose, they're accessible, available to everyone, they are grounded in the purpose for which they exist, and they have a strong foundation, and they connect us from point A to point B and back to point A if we need to get back there. And so The PIER model is purpose, inclusion, equip, and recognition. And purpose is that creating volunteer satisfaction is volunteers need to know that they are serving a purpose. Volunteering gives them a purpose, and that's important. They need to feel like they have a purpose, but they also feel like that they need to serve a purpose, and they need to know what they do, where it fits into the big picture. So I once heard a story of, and I wish I could tell you the name of the person, but that escapes me at the moment. But there was someone that was just touring NASA many, many years ago, and they they met the custodian. He was sweeping the floors, and they asked him, oddly, but what did he do? What does he do there? And he said, I put men on the moon. He got it. He saw his purpose in keeping things clean and more than presentable, because he saw where he fit into the mission of the organization, and that's important for your volunteers. Inclusion is their voices being heard, and inclusion is if you are the volunteer manager or the director or a manager over volunteers, it's important to understand that what matters the most is how the volunteers view and perceive inclusion. And so inclusion is that not only is their voice is heard, but also that they're invited to organizational celebrations, holiday events, holiday meals, anything. You meet a goal, marketing department puts a goal out there. If it gets met, then everyone should be a part of the celebration and invited to it, whether it's an ice cream social or a popcorn afternoon with popcorn and candy and Cokes, because everyone in the organization works toward the same common goal. So it's important for them to be included. Included also involves making training available, to your volunteers. And again, any events, company picnics, or anything like that. And, also even the space in which they meet, because you may have individuals that are not able to do steps, or they can't sit in low chairs because of maybe back issues or hip issues. And for them to feel included, they need to feel accepted. So that means that the volunteer management and the management of the organization needs to understand that, and needs to understand that feeling included, it is a feeling, and it's based on actions. So they don't want to stand out. They don't want to feel like they're a burden or a bother, that they're, that you're glad that they're there, and that they feel valued. And so inclusion is a broad term, and that they're included and treated equally, just like anyone else would be. And again, regardless of what, if they have a disability, regardless of what that might be, whether it's speech or mobility or mentally, it is important. Inclusion is very, very important. Equip your volunteers with the skills, the knowledge, and abilities and training that they need, along with the information, so that they can effectively serve your organization and the people that your organization serves. Because they need to know the same thing, many of the same things that employees need to know, even policies. I'm not saying you need to sit down with and have a pop quiz on policies, but it's just, volunteers sometimes are overlooked, and they're considered, I've seen in some organizations, they really consider them like an outsider, and they never should ever get that impression whatsoever, because they're an integral part, and sometimes they're the most important part. But I feel like every position in the organization is of equal importance. One is not more important or less important than the other. and recognition. Recognition is one of my favorite things. And, I chose this topic for my doctoral research because it's important to me. And I have the heart of a volunteer. I love serving with volunteers. And I've served in several different capacities as a volunteer helping with something, as well as the coordinator over events. And I just, volunteers, they freely give of their time, and that needs to be appreciated and understood and valued. So what are some things that you can do, and especially that are low cost, to recognize the volunteers and their role in the success of the organization? Service, maybe the length of service. That's one thing that so many people do. Personal achievements. So maybe they're like me, maybe they're in school working on a degree. Maybe they are learning a second language and that they're taking classes for that. Anything that you can think of that your volunteers do, because just thinking like broad strokes there. So personal achievement, service to the organization, and then another way for recognition is connecting your volunteers with others in the organization. Maybe it's something that someone is doing something in a field or a type of work that a volunteer would be interested in learning more about. Especially if you have college students that are there fulfilling community service hours for a college course, they want to know more about something. You may have them, they get if it's 8 hours, they may get the 8 hours, and, they're done, and you may not see them again. And you might see them again. But if they feel respected, heard, and included, that increases the possibility that you may see them again as a volunteer. And other things that you can do. And these were things that some of these have a cost, some don't, but these are just some fun things that, like hats or, gift mugs, and you can put candy or maybe, like a gift card, to, a local or a national store. Those are always helpful. And your marketing department has those things. They have a lot of those things, a lot of, like t-shirts, notepads, pens, and they put together really good packages when they're out marketing to recruit new clients. Well, expand that thinking to include appreciating and recognizing your volunteers. And I did hear someone say one time that it's like, oh, that stuff is expensive. It's more expensive to lose a volunteer than it is to recognize and appreciate a volunteer and have them feel included and appreciated. But other ideas besides shirts, there's gift baskets, there's plaques, there's awards, there's phone calls, emails, social media shout outs. And not everybody is on social media. So take that into account too. And because, think about who your volunteers are, what age group are they in? What are their skill level, their interest? And when you communicate with them, it's important to communicate with their preferred method. If you want to text everything and you have someone that texting is just not their thing, respect that and email them or give them a call, and don't make sure that they don't feel like you think they're a burden, because eventually if they feel that way, they will drop out, and that's not what you want, especially with your really good volunteers. And most volunteers are your really good volunteers, is people have a heart for what they do, or they generally don't do it for very long. But you can also you can share family recipes or your favorite recipes, or candies, hand decorated cookies. You could have a cookie decorating opportunity as recognition, as well as Christmas cards, birthday cards. Take a picture of the staff, have everybody sign the back of the picture, list everybody's names on there. But those are just some tips and just ideas. I hope to get you going to where you can brainstorm for other ideas that don't cost anything or that cost very little. So let's move on to the next slide. Was there a question?
We are at the halfway point of the presentation.
Oh, thank you, Chrissy. The three elements of success for volunteer satisfaction are listen, include, and support. And, listen to their questions, listen to what they talk about, see what their goals are. And we've talked about include and how important that is and where that fits in. And then support. What do they consider to support? Skills training. And in my research, my doctoral research study, it was based on 4 theories. And one of the theories is there is a basic need, that people want to learn. They want to learn new things. And volunteers especially want to be equipped with the skills that they need in order to be an effective volunteer for your organization. So support is kindness, is compassion. If they need to take a break, then it's okay, because taking a break suggests they're coming back. So that's a good thing. Help them reach the goals that they have, not just the goals that you as an organization have, but support them and how they're, whatever goals that they're reaching for. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the learning outcomes. So this is the review, if you will. Think about can you list what each of the letters PIER for the PIER method, what they stand for, or tell me any of the 3 elements of success for volunteer satisfaction. If anybody wants to take one of those and just jump in there, please feel free. And it's okay if you don't, because I know sometimes Zoom training or Zoom webinars can be a little bit intimidating. So we're going to move to the next slide, and we'll have that review of the information. So next slide, please. So again, the PIER model: purpose, inclusion, equip, and recognition. And the 3 elements of success for volunteer satisfaction are listen and include and support. So let me ask you a question right here. What has been the most helpful thing that you've learned today? What's something that you've learned that you didn't know, or that you were glad to be reminded of? Chrissy, is there any comments in the chat?
Yep, I just see the purpose. The volunteers are serving a purpose for the organization. The act of volunteering also creates purpose for them.
Well, thank you. One of the really great things, for me in this study, was to realize how transferable and generalizing that this information is, because while my study focused on volunteers, this information is applicable to your employees, your coworkers, think about it, even your family, and your friends. People stay where they're wanted, they stay where they're valued, they stay where they're heard. So, this isn't just I don't work with volunteers. This is applicable. It's customer service, at its best. So just think about the different ways that you can apply the information outside of the way of the topic it's being included for. Okay. Any other comments that so far, Chrissy?
Just a comment about the PIER model. They thought the acronym was helpful, and they liked learning about the PIER model.
Sorry, what?
That they thought the acronym, the PIER model, was helpful. They really liked learning about that, and also that recognition was really important. It can take many different forms.
Well, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next slide, which is our last slide, is the conclusion. And the creating volunteer satisfaction involves being engaged in the process of volunteer management. And to just expand on that, creating is a verb. And we know that verbs are action. So engaging, creating, it's important. It's like you have to be, all in. And something else that's going to have a positive impact on your volunteer satisfaction is genuine care and support, for your volunteers, because that counts. I mean, everybody's human, so there's good days, there's great days, and then there's days that maybe we're not quite as on or up as what we normally are, and that's okay, because that just means that everybody's human. So we need to take that into account. But that genuine care and support works wonders and goes a really long way to the success of a volunteer program, as well as any other type of program. So as a result of you being here today and hearing this information, what will you do differently now that you have been equipped with some new tools for your tool belt?
Susan, would you like me to stop sharing the screen so that you can see the audience members?
Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah. In the chat, one person noted they'll consider these elements the next time they're in a position where they're using volunteers.
Yeah, and that's great. Like I say, one of the best things that I really like about this topic and my study, going beyond just the topic, but just the research study of it, is the impact that volunteers do have, and then the impact of what the research study shows. So whether you're teaching, you're managing people in a business, or you're managing volunteers, or you are a volunteer, or you are in customer service, medical field, anything, that these principles, these techniques, they work, and they really do, promote the PIER method. They really do, particularly inclusion, and respect is the foundational piece of everything. So make sure that people are heard, that they feel valued, and they feel included. So I appreciate y'all being here today. If you have any other questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Just, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can put it in the chat, either way. But I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come to this.
I thought that this was really great information in your session. So much of this TLC conference is supported by volunteers who volunteer to run technical support or volunteer to host these sessions. So I think it just had a lot of great information for me as we kind of, wrap up TLC in the next couple of days and then prepare for TLC next year. So just kudos to you. Great information. Thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
And to piggyback on Ryan's comment, I think it's like everything that you shared is something that can be applied to my world as a faculty member in how I manage my communications with students. Your PIER method is something that's very important to how we view students as well. Inclusion, welcoming everybody and being non-judgmental, knowing that people come to the classroom with different abilities and different backgrounds and different needs from their instructors. Some of our students need a lot of hands-on help, and some of our students need none. So, but everybody likes a kind word. Everybody likes a little bit of support when they need it. And I think that part of recognition and inclusion are the things that really resonated with me in your presentation. So really great information today, Suzanne. Thank you.
Well, thank you. One of the things on the recognition that, that I didn't include that you helped me see, well, both of you, all of y'all really, is, that sometimes your volunteers are not where you are, in this day and age of where we literally can work together and be in different countries, different states, cities, everywhere, that it challenges us to find creative and effective ways to recognize the input, the assistance, and support and encouragement too, that we receive from others. So maybe it's an email, maybe it's a card in the mail or an e-card. But yeah, take the time to do that. And it goes a long way. It really, really does. Just to have somebody, to feel like you have somebody that comes alongside you, that either they just get it, they understand, they've been where you are, or that they haven't been where you are, but their gift in life is encouragement. So never underestimate that, and don't take that for granted either when you get it. But look for ways. That would be I think my challenge to each of you is look for ways that you can lighten the load that people have wherever you are. Just, because you never know what people deal with and what's going on in their lives. So just look for ways to encourage, brighten, inspire. I know you'll find a way, and it'll just come to you. Do what fits who you are. But again, I'm just so excited that I had this opportunity, and then more excited that you all took time out of your day. So thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. We have just a few minutes left.
Any last comments from anyone? You see Jackie's raised her hand. Jackie, what's your question?
Oh, no, I didn't have a question. I just clapped because I loved what you said about having this opportunity to speak. I think that's so sweet, and it was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, Suzanne, and thank you for everyone who joined us today. Please use the survey link that I just put in the chat here to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and just to share your feedback on the conference experience. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Suzanne.